Look, I'm a freelance graphic designer. My sleep schedule isn't just messed up, it's an abstract expressionist painting of chaos. My most productive hours are somewhere between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., fueled by lukewarm coffee and the quiet hum of my computer. So being wide awake at 2 in the morning, staring at a half-finished logo design until my eyes burned, isn't unusual for me. The world outside my window is usually a dead silent suburban still life. The only sounds are the occasional sigh from the old refrigerator or the distant rumble of a late-night train. But tonight there was a different sound. It wasn't loud. That's what made it so damn creepy. It was this faint, persistent scrape, jiggle, 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 scrape sound. It was metallic and furtive. It was the sound of something being done that wasn't supposed to be done. It cut through the comfortable silence of my apartment like a razor blade. My first thought wasn't fear, it was annoyance. Who the hell is doing metalwork at this hour? I killed my desk lamp, plunging the room into darkness, and crept over to the window. I felt like a spy in a bad movie, parting the blinds with 2 fingers just enough to see. The street below was bathed in that sickly, buzzing orange glow from the old sodium streetlights, which makes everything look like a scene from a forgotten 70s horror film. And that's when I saw him. He was just a figure at first, a dark shape hunched over a car. He had a black hoodie pulled low over his forehead, and even from my second-floor window I could see he was wearing a blue surgical face mask. At 2 a.m., a mask and a hoodie don't exactly scream upstanding citizen on a midnight stroll. He was focused, his whole body tense as he worked on the driver's side door with something long and thin in his hand. A tool, a wire, a slim gem. My brain, which is usually just a slushy of caffeine and Adobe Illustrator shortcuts at that hour, went on immediate, screaming high alert. You know that feeling, the one where the little hairs on your arms stand up before you even know why? Yeah, that. A cold wave washed over me, and then I saw the car. My stomach just dropped through the floor. It was a midnight blue Subaru Forester. My car is a midnight blue Subaru Forester. It was parked in the spot right next to mine, under the exact same flickering streetlight. For a solid 10 seconds, my sleep-deprived brain couldn't even process which one was which. They looked like identical twins in the distorted light. But then I saw the little pine tree air freshener I'd forgotten to take down dangling from the rearview mirror. Or I thought I did. It had to be mine. All I knew was that a masked man was methodically, quietly trying to break into a car that was, for all intents and purposes, my car. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of pure, undiluted panic. My first and only thought was a flashing neon sign in my head: car thief. He's stealing my car, he's right there. My body went into a weird, silent autopilot. My first instinct was to scream, to yell "hey" out the window and scare him off, but my throat closed up tight. All that came out was a pathetic little squeak, the sound a mouse might make before getting eaten. Useless, Kira, absolutely useless. I backed away from the window, moving with an exaggerated, comical slowness as if the floorboards were pressure-sensitive plates rigged to an alarm. My mind was racing, a chaotic slideshow of worst-case scenarios, each more vivid than the last. What if he has a gun? What if he gets in the car and I'm the only witness and he sees my face in the window? What if he's not just a car thief? What if he's scouting the apartments and mine is next? I fumbled for my phone on the desk, my hands shaking so badly I almost swiped it onto the floor. The smooth glass felt slippery with sweat. I slid into the hallway, crouching down behind the wall that separated the living room from my bedroom. It felt safer somehow, as if the drywall could stop a bullet. I dialed 911, my thumb jabbing at the screen. The voice of the dispatcher was incredibly calm, almost bored, which felt like a bizarre, infuriating contrast to the Category 5 hurricane happening inside my chest. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's breaking into my car, I whispered, my voice cracking and hoarse. I felt ridiculous, like a kid calling from under the bed to report a monster in the closet. Okay, ma'am, can you give me your address? I rattled off my address, my eyes darting back towards the living room window as if he could hear me through the glass. I could still hear that faint, methodical scraping. It was the soundtrack to my mounting terror. Can you describe the suspect for me? He's wearing a dark hoodie, a black one. And a mask, like a medical mask, I stammered, trying to piece together the image. In my panic, my brain decided the situation needed more drama, more urgency. He looks like he knows what he's doing, I added, my voice gaining a false confidence. He looks really professional, very deliberate. Maybe he has a weapon, I don't know. I can't see his hands clearly. I definitely didn't know. I hadn't seen anything remotely resembling a weapon. But in that moment, my fear painted a glint of steel into the shadows, a bulge under his hoodie. All right, ma'am, I have a unit on the way. Your name is Kira. Okay, Kira, please stay on the line with me. Do not engage with the suspect under any circumstances. Lock your doors and stay away from the windows. I hung up before she finished the sentence. Stupid, I know, but I felt like I couldn't be tethered to a phone call. I needed to be ready. My mind immediately jumped to the next logical step in any home invasion movie: self-defense. What did I own that could be used as a weapon? I did a frantic mental inventory of my tiny apartment. A floor lamp, too flimsy, a heavy book, please this isn't a cartoon. Then my eyes landed on the kitchen. And there, hanging from its hook on the pot rack like a medieval shield, was my pride and joy, a 12-inch pre-seasoned cast-iron skillet. Heavy, solid, intimidating, it was perfect. I tiptoed into the kitchen and grabbed the skillet. Its familiar heft was surprisingly comforting in my trembling hands. This pan had seared steaks and baked cornbread. Tonight it was my shield and mace. I felt like a suburban Rapunzel, ready to defend her tower with cookware. Clutching my cast-iron weapon, I crept back to my spy post at the window, my heart a frantic hummingbird in my chest. I peeked through the blinds again. He was still there, still working at the door, patient and persistent. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Where are the cops? Every passing headlight on the main road was them. Every distant siren was for me. I stood there, barefoot in my worn-out pajamas, holding a frying pan, waiting for the cavalry to arrive and save my Subaru. Down below, the scraping stopped. Abruptly, I held my breath, my knuckles turning bone-white on the handle of the cast-iron skillet. My ears were straining, trying to catch the next sound. The shattering of glass, the screech of a crowbar. The man in the hoodie straightened up, and I heard a faint but distinct click. It wasn't a loud, violent sound, but a quiet, metallic pop, like a stubborn jar lid finally giving way. He'd done it, he was in. I braced myself for the next move, the dome light flashing on, him slipping inside, the engine roaring to life, my engine. My car, my beautiful, reliable Subaru, about to be driven away by a masked stranger. But that's not what happened. What happened next made no sense at all. He didn't yank the door open like a thief in a hurry. He pulled it just a crack, carefully, almost delicately, as if he were afraid of making too much noise and waking someone up. He leaned inside, his body contorting to reach across to the passenger side. He wasn't fumbling under the steering wheel to hotwire the ignition or rifling through the glove compartment for valuables. He was just reaching. After a moment, he pulled his arm back out. In his hand was a rectangular, insulated lunch bag, a bright blue one with a faded company logo on the side. He pulled it out, zipped it shut with a decisive tug, and then gently pushed the car door closed. It didn't latch properly, of course, because he'd just forced the lock, but he gave it a little pat as if to apologize. He took a step back from the car, holding his prize. Then he did something that completely shattered the entire horror movie narrative I had meticulously built in my head. He let out a huge, visible sigh of relief, his shoulders slumping as if he'd just completed a marathon. He reached up with his free hand and pulled the surgical mask down, letting it hang limply under his chin. Then he pushed back his hood. It wasn't the face of a hardened criminal. It wasn't a menacing scowl or the face of a desperate junkie. It was just a guy. A tired-looking guy in his late 30s, with messy brown hair and the weary, hollowed-out eyes of someone who's just finished a very, very long shift. He looked familiar, vaguely. I'd seen him before, I was sure of it. Maybe taking out his recycling bin or checking the mail in the lobby. He lived here, in my building. He must have felt my eyes on him because his head snapped up and he looked directly at my window. We made eye contact. For a solid, mortifying, time-stopping second, we just stared at each other. Me, a terrified silhouette clutching a frying pan in a dark window. Him standing on the street next to a car he just broke into, holding a lunchbox like it was a trophy. His eyes widened in realization. He wasn't scared. He looked utterly, profoundly embarrassed. A slow, sheepish, incredibly awkward grin spread across his face. He gave me a little wave, a pathetic, apologetic gesture that said, "Oh, hi. This isn't what it looks like." Then he shrugged, a full-body gesture of pure resignation, as if to say, "What can you do?" And that's when my brain, which had been running on pure adrenaline and bad assumptions, finally caught up. My eyes darted from the car he was standing beside to the one parked right next to it, my car. My Subaru, safe and sound, locked up tight, exactly as I had left it. His Subaru, the identical twin, was the one with the slightly ajar door. They were the same model, the same year, the same goddamn midnight blue. The only difference was that mine had a tiny, almost invisible scratch on the rear bumper. He hadn't been breaking into my car, he'd been breaking into his own. Edit 1. Okay, so I feel like the biggest, most monumental idiot on the planet right now. The biggest. My heart is still doing a frantic samba against my ribs, but it's no longer fueled by fear. Oh no, this is pure uncut 100 Colombian-grade humiliation. The masked, professional car thief. The potential armed menace I reported to the police. He's my neighbor. My actual, literal, lives down the hall in apartment minus 2 billion neighbor. His name is Arlo, I think. We've done the awkward hey nod in the hallway a few times while juggling groceries. He was breaking into his own car to get his lunchbox. I'm guessing he locked his keys inside after a long shift, a perfectly normal, if slightly clumsy, human thing to do. The kind of thing I myself have done twice. But it gets worse, so much worse, because my brain, in its infinite wisdom, didn't just stop at, oh, I've made a mistake. No, it had to let the situation marinate in awful for a few more seconds. The moment I realized my colossal screw-up, my first instinct was to get back on the phone with 911 and tell them, haha, just kidding, false alarm. My neighbor is just a bit forgetful, not a master car thief. Please recall your SWAT team and have a lovely night. I fumbled for my phone again, my hands now shaking for an entirely different reason. I was frantically trying to pull up my recent calls list, my thumb stabbing uselessly at the screen. But just as I found the number, I heard it. It started as a faint, distant wail, almost imperceptible over my own frantic breathing. But it grew louder and closer, fast, woo-ee, woo-ee, oh no, oh God, no. Down on the street, Arlo heard it too. His head whipped around, his tired face instantly transforming from sheepishly embarrassed to utterly bewildered. He looked at the end of the street, then back up at my window, his expression a perfect, cartoonish question mark. He was asking me with his eyes, is that for me? You didn't, did you? I could only give him a pathetic, horrified stare in return, my face frozen in a mask of pure dread. I probably looked like that Edvard Munch painting, The Scream. I didn't have to answer. The sound was getting deafeningly loud now, bouncing off the brick walls of the apartment buildings, a shrieking announcement of my idiocy. A kaleidoscope of flashing red and blue lights began to dance across the street, strobing violently against the windows opposite, painting my living room walls in the official colors of my own stupidity. The sirens were here and they were not happy. It wasn't one cop car, it was two. They came in hot from opposite ends of the street, pinning the block in a pincer movement, as if they were expecting to corner a fugitive from a high-speed chase, not a guy who worked in logistics and just wanted his leftover sandwich. The world outside my window exploded in light and noise. Their headlights cut through the darkness, turning the scene into a stark, overexposed stage play. Two officers got out of the first car, moving with a tense, practiced efficiency. One was a big, burly guy with a mustache, the other a younger, leaner woman. They didn't draw their guns, thank God, but they had their hands resting on them. Sir, put your hands where I can see them, now, the male officer boomed, his voice echoing in the dead quiet street. Arlo, who was still just standing there holding his lunchbox like a lost child, jumped. He looked from the cops to his lunchbox, to his slightly ajar car door, and then back up to my window, his face a perfect picture of my life has just taken a deeply surreal turn. He slowly, carefully raised his hands, the blue lunchbox still clutched in one of them. Whoa, whoa, officers, it's okay, he started, his voice shaky. Drop what's in your hand and put both hands on your head, the female officer commanded. Arlo looked down at the lunchbox as if he'd forgotten it was there. He let it fall to the pavement with a sad little thud. As he put his hands on his head, two more officers emerged from the second car. The whole situation had escalated from a quiet misunderstanding to a full-blown felony traffic stop in about 30 seconds, and I was still standing in my window holding a frying pan. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that I couldn't just stay hidden. This was my fault. My insane, overcaffeinated, paranoid brain had summoned this small army. I had to go down there, my body moved before my brain could protest. I dropped the skillet on the sofa with a clang, unlocked my front door, and bolted down the 2 flights of stairs. My bare feet slapped against the cold linoleum of the hallway. I burst out of the building's main entrance and into the flashing chaos. Wait, I yelled, my voice sounding thin and hysterical. Stop, it's a mistake. Every single head, 4 cops and 1 very stressed-out neighbor snapped in my direction. They saw a woman in faded pizza print pajama pants and an oversized t-shirt, with wild hair and a look of pure panic on her face. For a moment, everyone was just frozen, staring at me. The only sound was the crackle of a police radio. It was me, I shouted, taking a few steps forward into the light. I called. But I was wrong, it's a huge misunderstanding. The burly officer squinted at me, his hand still on his sidearm. Ma'am, I need you to stay right there. Who are you? I'm Kira, I live here. In 2D, I pointed up at my dark window. He's Arlo, he lives in 2 billion. He wasn't stealing the car, it's his car, he just locked his keys in it. I was babbling, the words tumbling out of me in a desperate, incoherent flood. All 4 cops and Arlo were now staring at me with the exact same expression. The kind of look you give a person who has clearly, completely, and spectacularly lost their mind. The next 10 minutes were probably the most excruciatingly awkward of my entire life. Standing barefoot on the cold asphalt in the middle of the night, illuminated by the unforgiving glare of police headlights, I tried to explain the whole ridiculous story. "You see, officer," I began, gesturing wildly between my apartment and the two identical cars. "His car and my car are, well, they're the same, and it was dark. And he was wearing a hoodie." The burly officer, whose name tag read SGT, Miller, held up a hand to stop the waterfall of my words. He had a look on his face that was a masterclass in controlled patience, the kind of look you give a toddler explaining a crayon masterpiece on the living room wall. He turned to Arlo, who was still standing there with his hands on his head. "Sir, is this your vehicle?" "Yes, officer," Arlo said, his voice strained. "This is my 2018 Subaru Forester. The other 2018 Subaru Forester," he pointed with his chin towards my car, "is hers." "SGT." Miller walked over to Arlo's car, shone his flashlight on the VIN plate on the dashboard, and then spoke into his radio. While he waited for the confirmation, the female officer came over to me. "So you called in a car theft in progress, reported a suspect possibly armed," she asked, her tone flat and devoid of judgment, which somehow made it worse. "My imagination got the better of me," I mumbled, my cheeks burning with a heat that had nothing to do with the cold night air. "I'm so sorry for wasting your time." The radio crackled back to life. "Vehicle is registered to an Arlo Vance, current address," the dispatcher's voice announced to the entire street. "SGT." Miller sighed, a deep, weary sound that seemed to carry the weight of every stupid domestic call he'd ever answered. He gave Arlo the signal that he could put his hands down. The four cops conferred for a moment, then SGT Miller came back over. "All right, folks. Looks like it was just a big misunderstanding." He gave me a look that was less an accusation and more a plea. "Next time, maybe just try to be a little more sure before you call us out." "Oh, yes. Absolutely, I will, thank you," I stammered. They packed up as quickly as they had arrived. The flashing lights went out, the car doors slammed shut, and with a final, lingering look of pity in my direction, they drove off, plunging our street back into its normal, quiet darkness. Which left just me and Arlo, standing in the middle of the street, in the silence. He walked over and picked up his lunchbox, brushing some dirt off the side. He wouldn't look at me. I felt about 2 inches tall. "Arlo, I am so incredibly sorry," I said, the words feeling completely inadequate. He finally looked up, and for a second I saw a flash of pure annoyance in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a profound, all-encompassing weariness. He just shook his head. "It's fine," he said, though the way he said it suggested it was the opposite of fine. He gestured vaguely toward the building. "Oh, good night, Kira." This time there was no smile, not even an awkward one. Just the flat, empty courtesy you give a stranger you never want to speak to again. He turned and walked back into the building, leaving me alone on the cold pavement. The initial adrenaline of the situation had completely evaporated, leaving behind a thick, sticky residue of shame. I had tried to be a good, vigilant neighbor. Instead, I had managed to publicly humiliate another human being and brand myself as the neighborhood lunatic, all before 3 a.m. Final update: so it gets better, and by better I mean 1,000 times more mortifying. This morning I was psyching myself up to go outside. I was considering just staying in and ordering groceries for the rest of my natural life to avoid any human contact. But I finally ran out of coffee, which constitutes a level 5 emergency in my world. As I was heading out, there was a knock on my door. My heart leaped into my throat. It was her, Arlo's wife, a woman whose name I didn't even know, standing there with a bright, cheerful smile. She was holding a plate covered in aluminum foil. "Hi, Kira, right?" she said, her voice impossibly friendly. "I'm Lena, Arlo's wife from 2 billion. "Oh, hi," I managed to squeak out. "Arlo told me about the little mix-up last night," she continued, her smile never wavering. "I just wanted to bring these over as a thank you." She held out the plate. "They're brownies, and thank you really for being so vigilant and looking out for the neighborhood's safety. It's nice to know people are paying attention." I just stood there, speechless, holding a plate of what I could only describe as pity brownies. I couldn't tell if she was being genuinely sweet or if she was a master of passive aggression, delivering the most savage, sugar-coated "you're a crazy person" message I had ever received. Was this a peace offering, or was it a trophy commemorating my epic failure as a rational human being? I mumbled a thank you and closed the door. I'm eating one now. It's delicious, which almost makes it worse. So that's where we are. Arlo and I now share the most profoundly awkward hallway nods in the history of civilization. I can't even look at his Subaru without getting a full-body cringe. My simple, well-intentioned attempt to stop a crime resulted in me terrorizing my innocent neighbor and becoming the recipient of what I'm pretty sure is sarcastic baked goods. This is my life now, it really is a cosmic joke.